John chapter 13. Good to see all of you here this morning. The boat is leaning to one side. Feel like I need a lift in my shoe. All right. It's good to see all of you here this morning. I know we had said last week that we were going to share about the trip this week. Well, everybody went to Kings Island this morning. Well, most of the group went to Kings Island this morning, so we're not going to share about the trip today. We're going to share about it next week. We are going to share about the trip next week regardless. Okay? Whoever is here is going to share about the trip. And we have a special guest coming next weekend. Chris is going to come here, which is awesome because he only sent us a video to share, and now he can do it live. Okay? I don't know, we may like the video better, but he's going to share it live with us next week. And so we'll be sharing next week, which will be awesome. Okay? John chapter 13, we'll start at verse 1. And we started digging into this last week, and going to dig some more into it this week. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. Supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God and went to God, he riseth from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. After that he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter said unto him, Well then, Lord, give me a bath. Well, not quite that way. He said, Not my feet only, but also my head and my hands and my head. Jesus saith unto him, You don't need a bath. He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. And you are clean, but not all. For he knew who should betray him. Therefore said he, You are not all clean. So after he had washed their feet, and had taken his garments, and was set down again, he said unto them, Know you not that what I have done to you? You call me Master and Lord, and you say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If you know these things, happy are you if you do them. There are 2 points that we've already pulled out of this passage. First of all, that servanthood, and that's what we're talking about, is serving. Serving starts after eating. Serving starts after eating. In other words, we're not supposed to stay at the table. I remember growing up, we would go to my grandparents' house at Thanksgiving time. And if you wanted to learn things, if you wanted to be educated, if you wanted to hear stories about the family, you would stay at the table after dinner was over. Because that's when the discussion got good. Everybody was full. Everybody sat around and talked. The discussion got good. That carries on through at our family gatherings. We sit around at the table, and the discussion gets good. Paul gets loud. We start telling stories on each other, and Paul walked in just at that moment. Well, that was on cue. We planned that out. Heard his name and thought he better come in. We start telling stories on each other, and Dad will go, "You remember when?" And we'll start going and laughing and joking, and Anna will join in from her room. She'll hear us laughing, and she'll start laughing, and it just is a great time. But if we're serving, we're not supposed to stay at the table. We're to get up and serve. We're supposed to serve after eating. The feeding is a place where God fills those that will burn off the fuel in service. You should be burning off on Monday what you got on Sunday. Feeding is over. And so Jesus gets up and he lays aside his garment. This is number 2. In order to serve, you have to lay aside your agenda. Because you cannot serve with your agenda. Selfish people won't serve. Selfish people are all about being served. Selfish people critique the service that goes on. Selfish people came to get so that they can go home and wait until next week to get again. They are out ready. They are out ready for gluttony, not servanthood. They have a higher purpose. It is themselves, not the kingdom of God. Jesus, when he got done after eating, after supper was over, Jesus got up and he laid aside his garment. We have to lay aside our agenda. We have to remember that when we are saved, when we are believers, when we're walking in the kingdom, when we're walking in fields that are white unto harvest, when we come in here for worship service, when we gather together, it's not about you. It's all about him. We serve a higher purpose. Jesus, I said last week that marriages aren't lasting in our world today because we aren't training people to serve. We're training people to eat. A selfish daddy and a selfish mama are all fighting for turf. And they're raising a selfish child who only knows how to take. Because we're raising children who hasn't been given any responsibility at home. They haven't been taught how to serve. And when they grow up, they don't know how to do anything. Thank goodness they know how to do YouTube, so that they can learn how to do things. The only thing they know how to do, though, is take rather than serve. When life demands any kind of service, they feel they're being abused and mistreated, though, and that the world is turned against them because we have prepared them for a world that does not exist. You have to lay aside your garment. We have to humble ourselves and prepare yourself to serve somebody. You can't get rid of someone who serves. They'll create a job. They'll make a job because money follows service. If it doesn't serve a purpose, it has no value. The only real value that anything has is when it serves a purpose. And the greater purpose it serves, the greater it is funded. It is funded because it serves a purpose. It serves a purpose. So I thought this Sunday, that was all last week. You got that for free. That was a recap. Now we get into this week. So I thought this Sunday morning I would ask you a question. A very strong question. A very soul-searching question. What purpose do you serve? What do people get when they get you? And what do people lose when they lose you? What would they say they would not have if you walked out of the room? What purpose do you serve? Through the years of pastoring and ministering, we've had some tremendous saints, prayer warriors in the church. And when they have passed away, Dad and I have looked at each other when we've pastored together at these churches, and we have said, we are going to miss them because we knew they were praying for us, and we knew that they were praying for the church. And we knew there was going to be a vacuum from where they were. And because of their prayers, there are prayer warriors that pray and are on their knees praying for individuals. Names are flying through my head right now. Sister Sally Grant, who would come towards the end of her life, was out at Berwick Church, could hardly walk. We put a recliner down front so that she could sit in worship service. Most of the times I would carry her down the aisle because she could hardly walk down the aisle. 93 pounds is what she weighed. She was so frail that there were a lot of times I would pick her up and I was afraid I'd break her bones. There was one time I did break a rib. I didn't mean to, but I did break a rib. And I would set her in that recliner. And she would, at the end of service, during the altar call, she would get up out of that recliner with a broken back, messed up knees, and make her way to the altar to pray for her children to get saved, and pray for church folk who she knew needed help from the Lord. Tears streaming down her face. And I'd go pray with her just to make sure that she wasn't needing prayer for herself. I knew she was praying for other people. And I'd help her back to her chair. And when she passed, there was a vacuum at Berwick Church. She was missed. There are people. What would people say? What would happen if you walked out of the room? What purpose do you serve? I want to mess with you a little bit this morning. You may not do a whole lot of shouting this morning. I'm just going to warn you up front, okay? I just want to mess with you a little bit. Just think about it. The Lord of glory, surrounded by a royal diadem, humbles himself, pours himself out of his existent glory, out of his preeminent grace, denies himself of the glory he had with the Father before the foundation of the earth, and takes on the form of a servant, begirding himself with a towel, is a physical illustration of what it is for God to come in the flesh. What he did there in the upper room was giving us an example of what he did when he became flesh for us. Instead of using a towel, he used the flesh of Mary and took on the form of a servant. In Philippians 2, verses 6 through 8, who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. He came to us while we were dying in sin and said, "How may I serve you?" But the bell ringer for me, the cliffhanger for me, is when I realized that when he knelt down on the floor there in that upper room, that if he washed the disciples' feet, he had to wash Judas's feet too. Here he is on the floor, washing the feet of the guy who is betraying him, who had done a deal behind his back for 30 pieces of silver. Now, any one of you, if you were washing his feet, we probably would have broke his foot. We probably would have bent down and started pulling his toes and yanking his toes, and probably would have yanked his toenails and shoved toothpicks under his toenails. But here Jesus is washing his feet. He washed the feet of the guy that was responsible for nailing his feet. He laid aside his garments. He girded himself with a towel, and he began to serve and wash feet. Purpose. It's all about purpose. When you serve a purpose, I know you have to go to work, and I know you have to pay your bills. I know you have things to do, and I know you have to sustain yourself, as we all do. But is that all there is? Is that all life is? Bringing it in one door and slinging it out the other? Is that all that this is about? And then you die? Is there anything in your life that is bigger than you? That's bigger than what you need? That's bigger than what you want? That's bigger than what you drive? That's bigger than where you live? That's bigger than where you worship? Or are you in the business of sustaining you so much that you have no higher purpose in your life? Maybe it's difficult to get people to worship in church because their life has no worship. There is nothing in their lives that submits to anything bigger than them. So they come into the house of God and it's time to worship. It's difficult to put them into a position of worship because they are so self-centered that they cannot be Christ-centered. They are so self-conscious that they are not God-conscious. They are so consumed by what's going on with them that there is no room for anything that's bigger and more important than you. Well, I knew it was going to be quiet, but I didn't think it was going to be more quiet. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 8. I'll give you time to look it up. Shouldn't take long with your electronic device. Deuteronomy chapter 8. It's in the Old Testament. Towards the beginning. If you get to Genesis, you went too far. If you're at Revelation, close the book. Deuteronomy chapter 8. We're going to start at verse 11. Deuteronomy chapter 8, starting at verse 11. I want you to think about this morning as we delve into this and dig into this and work on this a little bit. The worship of God and what God did. I mean, think about what Jesus did when He left heaven to come down and serve. And that's what He did. He served us. Think about it. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God in not keeping His commandments and His judgments and His statutes, which I command thee this day, lest when thou hast eaten and art full and hast built goodly houses and dwelt therein, and when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. He says, the first thing I want you to remember is that you're saved. You see, I messed with you too much, didn't I? The first thing I want you to remember is that you're saved. I brought you out of your Egypt. I brought you away from your slave master. I brought you away from your bondage. I brought you away from that thing that was destroying your life. The first thing I want you to remember, God says, is you're saved. Oh, shout it. Who led thee? Verse 15. Who led thee through that great and terrible wilderness? I brought you through your childhood. I brought you through circumstances and situations. I brought you through droughts that should have destroyed you. I fed you with manna down from heaven. I gave you manna even when your situation didn't feed you. I provided for you. Even when you couldn't get it from normal sources, I made a way for you in the desert. I brought you through your wilderness. I brought you through your tough times. I brought you through your dark skies. I brought you through that time when you wanted to commit suicide. I brought you through that boy that was trying to kill you. I brought you out of that relationship that was trying to destroy you. I mean, I sent manna to you when your friends left you to die and they said, she'll never make it through that. I sent manna down from heaven and I fed you in the wilderness of your life. I know you're in your house now, but remember when you were out in the wilderness, walking around in the degradation of your depravity, I fed you intravenously, supernaturally, divinely, against all odds. You at risk, less likely. You could have committed suicide, could have lost your mind, but I sent manna down from heaven. Crazy blessings, things that made no sense, made streams break out in your desert, opened up the windows of heaven, poured you out a blessing that you couldn't hold. Your schoolmates died. Your neighborhood friends overdosed. And I brought you through, all through the wilderness. I led you around all the enemies and traps and diseases and afflictions and made ways when there wasn't a way. Don't forget what God has done for you. Oh, but it gets better. Look on down through verse 15. Wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions. All the things that attacked you. It should have killed you. The diseases you should have had. The death you should have incurred. Remember how I brought you out? Remember how nervous you were at the doctor's office? Remember how you wondered if you were going to make it or not? It wasn't that they didn't bite you, but I protected you. I made ways out of no ways. I opened up doors that no man could shut. Oh, you're not going to say very much this morning. You're not going to tell me anything. But you don't know what you don't want anybody to know how good I've been to you. When you praise me for stuff your wife doesn't even know about. Your husband doesn't know about. Your mama doesn't know about. Your father doesn't know about. And you just got to say deep down in your spirit this morning, to God be the glory. Great things He has done. The serpents bit you. The scorpions stung you. You went through drought. You went through the wilderness. But God, made a way for you. I know that there's some people in here, and you have to act like you've never done anything crazy, that you never got bit, that you never got attacked, that you never coulda, woulda, shoulda. But there are also some real people in here this morning that know that if it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, you would be sitting where you're sitting right now. You got bit, you got stung, you went through the drought, you went through the wilderness when the devil was licking his lips and said, oh, I got her where I want her. God led you around and He made a way out of no way. Listen, you need to tell your neighbor, excuse me a minute, I gotta praise the Lord. Because this is a personal praise. It's none of your business what I'm praising Him about, but I've got to stop and tell the Lord, thank you. I got bit, but I made it. I got stung, but I made it. I went through a dry place, but I made it. Made it without mama. Made it without daddy. Made it without a good boyfriend. Made it without a girlfriend. Sorry, Esther. Made it without a safe place. I went through hell. I went through high water, but I made it out. And when you see me praising God, I know what I'm talking about. Oh, but we ain't done yet. Verse 16. Who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that He might humble thee, and that He might prove thee, to do thee good at the latter end. I did things for you that your parents don't know. I made ways in ways that your parents would have never dreamed of. I fed you in a way that your grandmother could not even imagine. In your current situation, your grandmother would have thought she was in heaven. To have what you have right now, I did it. I made ways for you. I opened doors for you. You weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You didn't have a spoon at all. But I made ways on top of ways. I opened doors for you. I brought you through. Now you're sitting up in your big old air-conditioned house and your carpet, and you're enjoying the warmth of that carpet. Your feet don't get cold, and you wear your little cute clothes and your nice little outfit, and you're sitting all comfortable, laid back, acting like you have a problem. Baby, you owe me some praise. You owe me a praise, a supernatural, Holy Ghost, divine. I don't care what you say. You know you didn't used to get your hair done. You know you didn't used to get your nails done. But now you sitting up in the beauty parlor out there at the nail place. You owe me some praise. You know you didn't used to get a massage. You know you didn't used to have cable TV with thousands and thousands of channels. You know you didn't used to have that 80-inch TV hanging up over your fireplace. You owe me some praise. You know you didn't used to have 1, 2, maybe even 3 cars sitting in your parking lot. You owe me, your driveway. You owe me some praise. You know you didn't used to have a job that pays so well. You owe me some praise this morning. You know you used to flip burgers at Burger Chef. Oh, some of you don't remember Burger Chef? Google it. But for those of you that don't remember Burger Chef, okay, McDonald's. All right? But you're no longer flipping burgers at McDonald's. So you owe Him some praise because He opened some doors for you. Who fed thee in the wilderness with manna which thy fathers knew not, that He might humble thee and that He might prove thee, to do thee good at the latter end. I purpose to do you good. I keep telling you that life didn't have to be like that. I kept telling you that it wouldn't always be this way. I kept telling you that I would bring you out. I kept telling you that I would bring you through. I kept telling you that you wouldn't always have to go to bed hungry. I kept telling you that I would raise up somebody in your life that you could trust. I kept telling you that I would open up doors for you. I kept telling you I'd help you through school. I told you I would bring you through your storms, through your tests, and through your trials. I opened doors for you that nobody could shut. Your enemies tried to shut those doors. You saw them try to shut you out. Didn't I make a way in spite of them? You better not get cute on me. You better not sit there and act like you don't know I was good to you a long time ago. I mean, I didn't just get good to you. I did good a long time ago. You see, God's been good to me all the time. Thou saying in my heart, my power and the might of mine hand hath gotten me this way. He says, now you're sitting here acting like you made it by yourself. Like you got here by yourself. Now you're sitting here turning up your nose, acting like I'm not worthy. I ask you for too much. I want too much for you. I remember you in the wilderness. I remember you with the sting bites on you. I remember you when the snake bit you. I remember you when they tried to shut you down. Now you're bragging, talking like you did it all by yourself. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. If nobody in the whole church praised me, it's your job to praise me. It's your job to serve me. It's your job to give me the glory. You don't just owe me the tithe and offering, you owe me your life. You owe me your breath. You owe me your wind. You ought to sing, you are the air I breathe. I gave you breath. I resuscitated you. I brought you back to life again. Don't you see? You owe me. You're not doing me a favor. You owe me. Verse 18. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is He that giveth thee power to get wealth, that He may establish His covenant, which He sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day. Whatever you got, God says, I gave you the power to get it. I gave you the power to learn it. I gave you the power to do it. I gave you the power to understand it. But I did not give you the power to get wealth for you to forget me. But the power to get wealth must be tied to a higher purpose. that he may establish his covenant, which he sware unto his fathers, as it is this day. He said, I will give you the power to get wealth when you understand that that power is tied to a higher purpose. Oh, Lord, help us this morning. You see, I want you to understand, I want you to understand real good that your income has to be tied to a higher purpose. It has to be tied to a higher purpose. If it's not tied, you better get it tied in right now. Because I will give you the power to get wealth when I know that you understand the purpose from which that power comes. Oh, but it's not just your income. It's also your time, your family, your job, your life, and most importantly, your soul. Everything about you needs to be tied to that higher purpose. What is that higher purpose? Come back next week and I'll tell you. Seriously. That higher purpose is Jesus Christ. And yes, we'll talk more about it next week, but for today, you need to be tied to Jesus. Serving Jesus. What did Jesus do? After supper being ended, he got up, laid aside his garments, girded himself, got down on the floor, and served. He got up off of his throne, laid aside his garments, girded himself with flesh, came down and served. Oh, there was a higher purpose. And that purpose was to show us how much God loves us, to the point that he hung on a cross and shed his blood so that we can have access to the Father. Are you tied to Jesus and to the higher purpose this morning? If you're not, do it today. All this stuff that we got, we are blessed people. All this stuff, all these blessings, all the things that God has led us through, we owe him some praise. We owe him our lives. There's a higher purpose, and we need to be tied to it. Let's stand together.